Hey, good morning. As Eric said, you have Adam and John here from LaunchCode, and we so appreciate our partnership that we have with VML Y&R. I've been with LaunchCode for about a year and a half now, and I think the partnership's been going on for about 3, 4 years. But in that year and a half, like John and I have both been made to feel like we're true partners of the organization there at VML Y&R, and we're excited for all the work and things that we've been able to accomplish over the year. So look forward to diving into that a little bit deeper. Adam Davis, Managing Director of Company Relations. John is our Candidate Engagement Manager. I sit in St. Louis where it's currently 57 degrees and going to be a fall day, so excited about that. And John sits in our Kansas City market and is there close to VML Y&R. Just want to give a little bit of background about LaunchCode and how we got started because I think it's important to what our mission is. And so LaunchCode was started back in 2013 by Jim McKelvey, co-founder of Square. When he and Jack Dorsey came up with the idea of with Square, the original intent was to have it in their hometown of St. Louis, but with most tech startups that grow at the scale that they did, they just couldn't find enough tech talent in the St. Louis area market. So they had to move Square out to Silicon Valley, like most startups. But that never set well with Jim. He always wanted to have some sort of footprint in the St. Louis market. And so he started thinking about what he could do to change how St. Louis was able to attract talent, create talent, bring in companies, keep companies. And so he came up with the idea of LaunchCode. And LaunchCode is a national nonprofit. It's 100% free, and I think that's what differentiates us with most other educational offerings is that ours is 100% free to the student. And so it takes away that limiting barrier of the financial aspect of it. It becomes allows us to be able to go into more areas of the communities that individuals may not have the finances to be able to go through an educational program. And so we wanted to keep it 100% free, but then having it free, it also doesn't give us that sense where we have to feel obligated to graduate everybody that goes through our program. Nothing against the other boot camps or educational offerings. I think they're all, equally as important. I'm still very involved in my alma mater at the University of Central Missouri, remain on the board of advisors. So there's a need for all the offerings that are out there. But with LaunchCode, we typically start with about 180 students in one of our classes. And again, since there's no, we don't feel obligated to have to graduate everybody because not everybody is meant to be in the tech or coding and that sort of thing. So we start about 180, and by the time we graduate, it's between 80 and 100. And so we see it as a filtering out program in it of itself. And so I'll let John dive into more of the educational offering side of things. But it's very diverse. You will look at some of the stats later on that show that it's about 50-50 split people of color, 50-50 split with male female, and it just kind of runs the spectrum from there. So it's a great opportunity for individuals looking to get into the tech realm. You see people from all sorts of walks of life, backgrounds, from people second career, going from food service beverage industry to those that worked in finance, wanting to get in banking. But then you also have those individuals that graduate high school and dive right into our program. And with that, LaunchCode then partners with companies such as VML, Y&R once our students get through the program. And we have what we call our apprenticeship model. And VML Y&R has one of the most respected within any company that we work with for how they work. But it allows our graduates to get real life hands-on experience as they're coming in. It allows them to be paired with a mentor. It allows them to just have about 90 days, 6 months, a year to really get hands-on experience before they transition to a full-time role. And so with that kind of little bit of background about what LaunchCode is, and we'll dive into it deeper, I want to let John touch on the educational offering component. And as Eric had mentioned, please, if you have any questions as we go through this, then just let us know in the chat box. Eric will moderate it and we'll go from there. But I'll let John touch a little bit on the education side of things.
Hey everybody, hope you're all having a nice morning. Thanks for coming out and listening into what Adam and I have to share today. We're excited to be here, so glad to share. But like Adam said, I want to talk a little bit more about what we provide as far as our education system goes. So it is a free program, but there's a lot that goes on inside of that program. And it provides a lot of, tools for for people to learn how to code and how to program. So first and foremost, I want to touch base on our most prevalent uh, course offering, which is LC 101. So you can see those here, but I want to talk mostly about LC 101 first, and then I can dive into a little bit more on the Coder Girl, Code Camp, and then the liftoff section as well. So first and foremost, LC 101, yeah, that's awesome. I think actually, to provide a little bit more background, I went through LC 101, and I believe I was in the same class as Laura. So I'm also an LC 101 graduate, completed the program, and then LaunchCode offered me a job. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now, just to offer a little bit of background. But um, like Laura said, LC 101 is the primary class that we provide here in Kansas City. And just a little bit of background on that, like Adam said, it's usually around like 180 or so people that we admit to the class. And contrary to what people mostly believe entering into that class, since it's free, is that it's going to be a walk in the park, when realistically it's not. So we end up graduating anywhere between probably, 50% of that initial number. So like maybe 70 to 80 students out of that make it through the entirety of the class. So what goes on inside of that, or I guess the entire goal of the class, is just to teach you the skills that you need to launch a career in technology. That's the overall goal. The course was built to provide anyone that's taken the class, regardless of what kind of experience they have prior. There's no prerequisite for entering into LC 101. So our goal outside of teaching you those skills to launch that career in technology is to provide a solid foundation in computer science. So our first unit focuses on JavaScript as the language that we teach you as your intro or entry into web development. But the idea is to emphasize skills that are essential for success as a professional developer. So that involves tools that developers use, and also just having great problem solving skills. So there are expectations of the class as well. So students coming in, we share this prior to, well, it's during the application process. This is everything that they're aware of prior to entering the class. We expect all the students to show up to class. We do take attendance, and we host class twice a week, nightly classes for 3 hours a night. It's usually, so like this current iteration of LC 101 is running on Tuesday and Thursday evenings from 6 to 9. And so that's the 3 hours of class time. And then there's also 10 to 15 hours of time that we expect you to study outside of class to be able to keep up with the content of the class. And that's not an overestimate either. Like I said, there's a misconception as far as what students expect to be doing when they enter into the program. They think, oh, I'll be able to maybe complete the work outside of class in a couple hours. That's not really the case. So outside of class, students are going to be working on exercises. They're going to be completing graded assignments, and they're also going to be working on any previous studios that they may have not completed inside of class. And then I'll also touch base on the studios in just a little bit too. But the overall grading system of our class is a pass-fail system. So there are graded assignments that you need to complete by certain dates throughout the entirety of the course. And if those graded assignments are not complete, we do have the capability of withdrawing students from the class at any time. So that being said, the overall class structure is revolving around prep work that the students are responsible for completing prior to class each evening. So that's going to be some concept checks, exercises, and just usually reading about whatever kind of topic we're going to be covering that night. And then during class, we do have a lecture that usually lasts anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. That's for that first hour of class, and then we jump into small groups. So students are going to be working with a mentor, which is a TA. So we have teaching assistants, and it's usually about 10 students per one TA. And the goal of that is to have somebody that's a little bit more experienced with coding that they can go to for any kind of questions that they might have, or any kind of blockers that they have along the way. And we always like to have previous students become the new TAs for our class, because they're very familiar with how our program runs. They're very familiar with what they need to do in order to complete the program, and they've been through it. So they're able to talk about, what kind of things they had struggled with, or what they did to become successful in the class. So that's kind of how the class is modeled, as far as like in class time, and then outside of class time as well. So like I had mentioned, in the class is structured in 2 units. So the first unit is, yeah, this is a good diagram that I had brought up here. So in the first unit, we're going to be teaching you the programming web fundamentals with JavaScript. So that's going to be talking about, the basics. So variables, statements, data types, typecasting, operators, data structures, so arrays and objects, best coding practices, so naming conventions, where you teach them loops, conditionals, how to create functions, scope of functions, so if there's a variable inside of a function rather than outside. And we recently incorporated unit testing and test-driven development, so TDD as well, inside of that first unit. And then we also do like I mentioned, the basic computer science fundamentals. So that's going to be working within your terminal or on your command line, file structure, and fundamentals of like HTTP routing, things like that, so on and so forth. And after that first unit's completed, that's the first 10 weeks. So it's a 20-week program. So 2 classes a week for 10 weeks for that first unit, and also 2 classes a week for 10 weeks for the second unit. So the second unit, we jump into either Java or C#. This time around, we're actually going to be teaching C#. And there's not any real solid reason why we're doing C# instead of Java. We just did a rewrite of our C# curriculum. So we wanted to give that a shot. And C# is, it's relatively prevalent here in Kansas City as well. So we also wanted to have a diverse skill set amongst our students that graduate from the class. So whether it's Java working with Spring Boot or C# working with .NET, we teach them the MVC architecture. So model view controller, of course, and then some of the things that we start teaching them in that second unit is so object-oriented programming, of course. We touch more on unit testing. So there's also going to be PI, as I like to call it, so like polymorphism, inheritance, encapsulation, abstraction, if you want to include that in the 4 pillars, if you want to call it, of object-oriented programming. We also start to teach how to add things into the database. So user input and saving that into the database, and also potentially REST APIs as well. So that's kind of how the course is designed for the first 2 units. And like I said, that's 20 weeks. After you complete the second unit, we have an optional course, which you can see here, which is called the Liftoff. So what we do in the Liftoff course, I've got it noted here. It's for your personal project and job-ready skills. So when I say personal project, it's just basically taking what you've learned from our class and demonstrating that you can now build something on your own with that newfound skill set. And usually that goes very well. And there's more to having a project than students might think, because you might go out on a job interview and a company might not ask you about your personal project, and then a student might say, well, hey, why did we even do this project if they didn't even ask us about it? And my response to that is usually, well, did you bring that up yourself? If it's something that you're proud of, always make sure to bring that up in an interview and talk about it, because it's not easy to build a project, especially if you're doing that entire development process by yourself. So it's something that you can talk about, something that you struggled through, learned something along the way, and can just be proud of. So that's the idea behind the personal project. As far as job ready skills go, that's going to be things like creating a LinkedIn account, creating a resume. We help students create a resume. We help them with interview skills. So we do a lot of live coding in the Liftoff program. So, imagine, this is an extreme example, but if you're trying to tie your shoe while somebody's watching you over your shoulder, it's more difficult than if somebody's not watching you over your shoulder. So trying to complete a live coding exercise while somebody's watching over your shoulder, or whatever that may be, is extremely difficult. So it's very nerve-wracking. So we try and give the students that experience prior to them starting to meet with companies and interview with those companies. So that's one of the ideas behind the live coding, for example. But yeah, that's what the Liftoff program provides. And like I said, that is an optional 8-week course that only meets 1 time a week. And after Liftoff, we definitely feel very confident that our students are able to basically jump right in on any job and start to be a contributing member of any team. So yeah, I know Adam mentioned the apprenticeship program earlier, and I think he's going to talk about it again in a little bit. But we've also got Code Camp mentioned here and Coder Girl. These are 2 programs that primarily are in St. Louis right now that we have been, there's been talks about bringing them to Kansas City. I have not run a code camp or a Coder Girl program, but the idea is similar to LC 101. The time frame is different. So the timing is just a little off. So a code camp is a full-time course. So that's going to be a 12 or 13-week course that meets Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And that's a lot more intensive, and there's a lot less students in those courses as well. So there's a much more extreme vetting process as far as students that we bring into the code camp, because committing your day from 9 to 5 it's not easy for everybody. And it's the same concept as far as LC 101, just on a shorter time frame. We teach the same things. There's just a lot more in-class time. It's a lot more focused, a lot more help from the TAs and the instructor. The Coder Girl, and Adam, you can jump in at any point if you have anything to add about Coder Girl, but the entire idea of Coder Girl is also very similar to LC 101, but they provide extra skill sets and extra tracks, if you want to call them. So they learn a lot more about SQL, learn a lot more about UX and UI, so like design, things like that. And then they jump into data analysis and data science as well. So yeah, that's kind of like an option that you get in the Coder Girl program, where you can choose one track and then focus on that whenever you come into class. But yeah, I think that about covers our program in general. Adam, did you want to touch base a little bit on the apprenticeship program?
Yeah, real quick on the Coder Girl. So the Coder Girl program actually came out of an all-female just group that was meeting outside of LaunchCode, that they were getting together. It was a way for them to come together without being intimidated, in the natural setting, that we were getting lower applications from the female demographic. And so it was just this all group female class that started coming together, and then it grew into one of our most successful programs. It's currently only based in our headquartered city of St. Louis, but once the students get through that program, it is a great way for companies with women in tech initiatives to be able to identify great talent. And so we're hoping to grow that to Kansas City. We're looking at 2021 as the first year we'll launch that, but there's a lot of logistics we got to work out on that end. But all three of the programs are a great way for individuals to learn. They don't learn everything in tech, obviously, but it's a weeding out system in itself. I mean, if you can get through one of these intense programs, most people, working full-time jobs with additional 20 hours of homework on top of that and classwork, then that's what companies truly look for, that these are individuals that are going to show up to work every day since they show up to class every day. And so, yeah, great job, John, on giving an overview. If anybody has questions on the class or for John, please don't hesitate to let us know on that. So let's see here. So there's just a little bit more. One of the other educational offerings that we have is what you'll see in the bottom left side of the screen there, which is our targeted training. So we started having companies come to us and said that they were struggling to find specific niche talent, or they were just struggling to find a large group of talent at one time in a given market. And we'll use mainframe, for example, because I think that's one that many people have seen in the news from governments, and that struggling to find the talent. And so say MasterCard gave us a call, and they're one of our biggest clients, is that they were struggling to find mainframe. And so what we can do is then we'll go out, we'll recruit the talent either from our LC 101 class or Coder Girl class, the individuals that are looking for just a little bit more advanced knowledge, and then we can put them through a training on that specific technology, whether Pega, COBOL, et cetera, that we'll just put them through either a 2-3 week, whatever the budget and time frame the company's looking for, 6 weeks, that they'll go through this specialized training, and then they'll go work for those companies. And it's a win-win. I mean, these companies are able to save a lot of money by having in-house talent versus outsourcing, but then it also allows these individuals to gain a skill set that they otherwise wouldn't, again, 100% free, that they go through all these trainings. So it's a great way for companies and individuals to get this. So once they get through our trainings, then we have our apprenticeship model. And Eric, would love for you to chime in if you have any other thoughts as we go through talking about the apprenticeship model. But it's so critical for our students. They are very junior, they're very green. They have, the passion, aptitude, and drive, but it's getting in there and feeling comfortable with being able to provide for a company and the team. And so with our apprenticeship model, it typically runs about 90 days, 6 months. I think VML Y&Rs is about a year. but it allows them to gain real life hands-on experience. And with our name, LaunchCode, I know it can be a misconception that we only place in coding development jobs, but Eric can touch on that they have a lot of roles that we're able to fill, from QA to BA. So it just kind of runs the spectrum of what falls within the tech realm. And so the apprenticeship model is proven to be very strong. About 9 out of the 10 candidates that we place in apprenticeships make it through. In my year and a half, out of all the placements, I think I've only had one that didn't make it through the apprenticeship, which not everybody is going to be able to do so. And so that's our real bread and butter. We don't want to just educate people without giving them an opportunity at the end. And so we really, really strive to make sure that people have these opportunities. And since 2013, we've launched over 2,000 careers. I think we're at about 2,500 now that we've gotten people nationwide into these jobs. And it runs the spectrum from tech startups to Fortune 500 companies to National Geospatial Intelligence Agency to the Pentagon. I mean, we've got people that have been placed all across the board. And so it's just a great way to get that real life hands-on experience. And I'd be curious if anybody wants to include in the chat if they have some sort of apprenticeship model that they have at their companies, or if they're interested in the mentorship side of things. It just kind of gives us a better idea on that front. But Eric, would you care to share a little bit about how the VML Y&R apprenticeship model works?
Yeah, I was thinking about how over the years that the types of roles that we've ended up placing people into have changed, and I think that's kind of just a testament to technology is always changing. It's terribly cliche, but the fact of the matter is, as the industry continues to change and evolve, we have different needs. And then I think we had some candidates at first that were primarily focused on just development, and then our needs changed and we needed people for development and QA, which is still involves coding, but it's an evolving. And then we have DevOps, where we need some people that know a little bit more about systems, and so this is continually changing as we move along. And it's one of my favorite times of the year, whenever we have the whole interview process, and it's great. We have people who love to volunteer to sit in a couple of small rooms, which that probably will change now, for a couple of days, and bring in just this stream of people and go through these interviews. And it's great to hear about their different backgrounds and what they were doing, how they got started. I think I've talked before about Jude, who moderated the games last night. I really enjoyed my interview with him because he had this interesting game that he had made on the side, where he was, it was cracked, and he swore that it wasn't cracked because of the fact that two people had to hold with the same phone, and then you would have to twist it. But he's like, no, it's not cracked because of this. And I'm like, okay, sure. But it was just great because he made this game, and then he could show it off, and it was just a testament to that. He was working at Starbucks, and then he comes to LaunchCode and he learns how to code, and then he has something to show off, and then comes to us, and we take that step just a little bit further. And obviously that worked out. Is Jude even here? He's probably in the other, probably not awake yet. All that gaming. But it's a really, really great process, and a really, really great experience, both from, I think, the candidate side, and then also from our side as well.
Yeah, and it's also a great way to get some talent in the door that comes from non-traditional backgrounds. I'd say one of our biggest hurdles in our apprenticeships and getting some junior level entry is that not all have a CS degree, and getting into a lot of companies that have this laundry list of credentials that individuals need to have. Most of our candidates aren't going to have that. And so it's a great way to get in there and show that, if you could do the job, you should get the job. It doesn't matter necessarily that you have a laundry list of credentials with that. I think back to a lot of the most talented individuals I've met and worked with over the years. I don't sit there and think like, John's phenomenal at what he does because he's got a master's degree in computer science. And while I know that can be beneficial, it doesn't necessarily define somebody's skill set. So just knowing that John is one of the most passionate people I know, one of the most driven people I know, I mean, those things far outweigh what your resume or something may have. And so it's just letting people see what talent is out there besides just recruiting from the university systems. So yeah, Laura has a marketing degree and now she builds APIs. We get a lot of individuals that graduated with a degree, and not that they're bad or anything, but in art or history, and then they decide to go through. So it's interesting to see a lot of the backgrounds that we come through. And so let's look here. And so just here to touch on some of the facts and figures that we talked about earlier. We've launched over 2,000 careers, and more than 4 out of 5 of the apprentices are hired permanently. One of the largest stats that's important is that 48% of individuals are unemployed before LaunchCode. And these are this is life-changing for people. They go from making nothing to the average salary of a LaunchCoder being over $55,000. That's a lot. And I mean, if you think back to, these are individuals most between 24 to 34 years old. A lot of them have families. And just to hear the stories of the students once they get through that were given a chance, I mean, it's phenomenal. And again, looking at the degrees there on the slides, 34% have no degree, while 50% have a degree in computer science and 51% have degrees just not related. And so these are individuals that have demonstrated that they have the skill sets, but just need a little bit further education. And John, do you have anything to add on that from your experience?
Not necessarily. I would say the one thing that I would add is with these facts and these numbers here, and everybody that comes into our class is kind of in the same boat. And what that does is it creates a community amongst that class and a community that continues outside of that class with LaunchCode. I would say that's one of the biggest draws for the students is they really connect with their fellow students and the TAs even, because the TAs previously are usually previous students. So it's a shared experience, and that's one of the biggest things that our program provides as well, is just like that sense of community and engagement.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I was just going to say that's definitely true at VML Y&R, where the launch coders, it's one thing if whenever you start the job and you're there on your first day and you don't know anybody, but the apprentices have all gone through something together, and now they're continuing this path, and then they would huddle up for lunch and they'd all be together and kind of sharing, having their shared experiences. And that's probably one of the good things about being able to come in a small pack, that you've got some people to ask questions, but then so you have like this kind of instant small community that you get to benefit from. So lunch coders, Laura says, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's actually probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody can relate. Imposter syndrome is real. And so a lot of these individuals that may not have the typical degree that they feel that they have to have, but then they can go and get that real life experience and work with a team that is empowering to them, provides mentorship. It goes a long way in them being able to realize that they can do this and that, they have a place within the tech field. So some interesting facts and figures that we have is, and that we take great pride in, is the diversity that we're able to provide the tech community. And it's so important. We take a strong focus on going to the communities that are underrepresented and encourage them to apply. And then we have all these resources to make sure our students can get through. And so if you see, those numbers are a little bit higher than what are typically indicative of a tech team out there in the real world. And so we want to make sure everyone's empowered to be able to pursue a career, no matter what their previous career choices were, demographics, social demographics, economic demographics. So we want to be a resource for every individual that wants to be in tech, that can be in tech. And so, want to take a moment, John. Do you have anything, or Eric, that you want to add before we share just a quick 2-minute video of what a launch coder is?
No, we'll come back to questions, and so
Perfect.
After the video, yeah.
So hopefully this works. Let's see.
You may have to turn your volume up.
Yeah, go ahead and pause it, Adam. we're not getting the volume.
Let's see. This may be out of my tech realm here.
Is it coming through on your earbuds?
Yes.
You might unhook your ear. I think
Yeah.
that's what we've had to do so far because of the microphone. If you play a video, it has to kind of like catch it off of your computer. So you just
Yeah, so unhook your earbuds, Adam, and then just turn your volume on your laptop way up. Do you have your earbuds unhooked? Yeah, unplug those. Oh. Let me see.
Well, the video looks very nice. So looks nice, you know. That's true. Carl says we should have a launch coder look at the problem, or a lunch coder.
All tech companies
Make sure you
eventually
select
have.
your screen to share and then click the share audio box. So
You didn't mute yourself, Adam, because that might also be a problem.
yeah, now we can't hear him.
Let me see. I just shared the link in chat, Adam, so we could just do it that way too.
Yeah, Adam, we can't hear you now, so I don't know if you probably need to plug your headphones back in now because I'm guessing your mic setting is hooked up to your earbuds.
Yeah, if everybody here just I shared the link in the chat. If you want to just navigate your browser to that link, take a couple minutes to watch that video, we'd really appreciate it, and then we can come back and answer some questions.
So yeah, if you guys had any questions that you wanted to start popping into the chat box, we could start going through those. I have some, but I'm gonna wait, see if anybody else has some.
Yeah, I was just giving everybody a couple minutes to finish that video, and then we can definitely.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I hope you all had a couple minutes there to take a look at that video, and we definitely want to get into answering some questions. And I'm sure that's going to fork off into some other conversation as well. So, first question here from Todd, I believe. Any plans to expand past the KC and STL areas? The answer to that question is yes. We're currently hiring for a Philadelphia market and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, and also a Northern Arkansas market right now. So those are our next expansion sites, currently slated for, I believe, early next year.
Yep. What gets you to decide where to go? How does that get selected?
I have an idea of what I would answer, but Adam, do you want to take that one?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into looking at our expansion. I mean, we've gone into markets and we've failed out, not necessarily because LaunchCode wasn't a great program, but because there wasn't a problem for us to help solve. I mean, Portland does not struggle to find junior tech talent. So when we're looking at what markets to go into, it's is there going to be community support? For us to be able to provide free education, there's got to be, economic development corporations that are, partners in this. There's got to be a large philanthropic arm that are providing donations so that we can be able to run these classes. A typical class costs us about $150,000 to run. So we got to figure out how we're going to get that money. And so we look at that, but then also what type of companies are there that are looking. We do better in like a Midwestern market like St. Louis, Kansas City, Philly, where there are a lot of Fortune 500 larger companies, but just not a lot of junior tech talent. So that's the kind of the markets we look at. And so Philly was one where they came to us and said, we need you guys. Would you guys look at coming here? And so then we start looking at that market. Northwest Arkansas, the Walton Foundation came to us and said, we're struggling to find, attract or retain tech talent, because that's another important factor about LaunchCode. Are these individuals are, they're going to stay with the companies that they typically get placed with because they have a certain loyalty. I mean, they're given a chance. And so the retention rates are very high. So these individuals, say in Northwest Arkansas, when they get trained up, ramped up, and placed with these companies, then they're most likely going to stay in Northwest Arkansas and not look to go elsewhere. So there's a lot of that goes into it, but basically, is the financial aspect going to be there? Does it make sense with the ability to get students placed into apprenticeships? And so that's kind of what we look at. But having said that, especially with the times that we are right now, where a lot of things are remote, we do work with companies throughout the country. I mean, I saw somebody in Chicago, Iowa. We've worked with companies there, so it's across the country where we are able to. We're working a lot in Charlotte right now, even though we don't have classes there. We're able to find a lot of our students who are open to relocation, and we can still partner with companies to find the talent.
Okay. Next question. What do you think is the biggest reason you've been so successful in recruiting diverse individuals?
That's a good question. I think I would start with the recruiting process itself. So by that, I mean what individuals and what candidates go through in the application process for the class. So for instance, I mean, it's free to apply. There's no prerequisite, like I mentioned earlier. And you go through a series of questions. So it's going to be, there's essay questions that they answer during that application process. There's also demographic forms and sheets that they fill out. And then there's also a problem solving assessment that's similar to what you would see on like I always think back to like when I took ACTs in high school, the math section, like something similar to that. And what helps us a lot is the amount of people that apply for the program. So for instance, this most recent LC 101 that's currently going on here in Kansas City has 150 some odd students that we accepted into the class, but we had 850 people apply for the class. Wow. So when you have that amount of people applying, it's easy for us easier to recruit diverse individuals. The second part that I would say to that question is word of mouth. So students that have completed our program and have talked about their program to their friends and family and talk about what they went through and some of the people that they met in the program, they hear about those things. So it's welcoming, it's inviting for students and people that might be, some people just don't do well with school. It can be very intimidating. So I think it's the overall environment that makes it more accessible for everybody that's interested in learning. We try and make it a very, very, I guess, nurturing environment for everybody. Try and make it as welcoming as possible. That's how I would answer that question.
Okay. Well, Kat had a question about if you were doing classes online. I mean, there's no in-person stuff at the moment, is there?
That's correct. There's no in-person stuff at the moment. So normally, Kat, we do host our classes at Rockhurst University. They're one of our in-kind donors, and that kind of touches on John's question down towards the bottom. But that's where we normally host our class, and it's very awesome because they lend us a stadium, like 160 seated stadium lecture hall at Rockhurst, which is it's a really cool environment to be a part of as a student, because it feels like you're actually going to, a college, for instance. So that's the environment is there for that. But right now we're hosting all of our classes through Zoom, and it's entirely remote. We don't have any plans as of right now to move back to an in-person classroom. I think logistically that's not something that most anyone's prepared to deal with, and especially not us currently as a nonprofit. I think the students, I don't think would be comfortable with it in the current scenario that we're in. But
has the pandemic changed any other operations besides just in class or in-person class?
Yeah, so it's definitely changed our workflow as a company. All of our meetings, everyone in the company is working remotely, and we have been since, was it maybe March 26th, something along those lines. We've been working remote since March, and I think it's going very well. I think we're definitely figuring out that as a tech company, we can definitely work remotely. But there are those things that you miss out on, that personal engagement. Seeing people in the office is always, some people miss that.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Let's see.
Adam, do you want to touch on John's question here?
Yeah, just real quick on how it's funded, and we did touch on it just a little bit, but we have a lot of large company partners that again sponsor some of it. Like MasterCard covers the entire cost of the class for our Coder Girl track in the St. Louis market, but then also the apprenticeship side, which is different than a lot of companies, that's where we make our money back. So it's not on the students, it's a little bit more on the company, and so the companies will pay a bill rate for the apprenticeship as they're going through the program. We make a little bit on the overhead, which allows us to continue to offer the classes for free. So that's what takes a lot of community buy-in for us to, again, the expansion into markets. Our company's going to buy into a program where they take on a little bit more of the responsibility versus the students going through. And so as we make a little bit on top of the apprenticeship model, then that's how we're able to stay operational. So it's about 50-50 split between the donations, the philanthropic efforts versus what the companies pay to have apprenticeships join their team.
What would you say is like the biggest change, if you want to include the pandemic or not? That's up to you. But like from the very beginning until now, with the program itself.
You want me to go first, Adam?
Sure.
I would say that for me, being a previous student and kind of being involved with the company for over a year now, the biggest change is the curriculum itself. So when LaunchCode first launched here in Kansas City, I know that for sure, and I believe in St. Louis as well, it was modeled after Harvard's CS50 class.
Okay.
So we took that and realized that this was something that we could continue to provide, and that's when we developed our own curriculum. So rather than just having the course based on like a computer science fundamental curriculum, we developed our own. So I believe that first started with a Python class. So that's what Laura and I learned when we went through LaunchCode. So it was 3 units instead of 2. So I would say the thing that's constantly changing is definitely the education side, what we're teaching the students. Because as you said, it's cheesy to say, but technology is always changing. So our curriculum is always changing. I would say that's one of the big ones, most certainly. And just the size of our team as a whole.
Yeah, John's 100% correct. Is that what we're offering in education is tailored to the market and what the needs are. I mean, Eric and I had a conversation, DevOps, and we hear this from other companies as well. So how can we better put that into our classes, our one-on-one, but also what we teach in Kansas City, what we teach in St. Louis, which are different places, just tailored to what the companies have need for.
And yeah, just to touch on a little bit of what Adam said. So Eric, you said or Adam said you had talked to you about some of the DevOps curriculum, and you had mentioned it earlier. That's one of the things that you guys are involved with at the VML-Y&R. And we have a curriculum that's almost, I'm not sure the exact timeline of what the couple people that are working on it are on, but we do have a DevOps curriculum that's almost finished.
Cool.
So yeah, we're already developing curriculum that we plan on using in the future, so that we're ahead of the game, I guess, so to speak, so that we can also offer. Yeah, Laura, it looks pretty good. I've taken a look at it myself, and I can definitely share it with you if you're interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the other big changes is you're seeing the change in mindset, as I touched on HR earlier, is like getting their buy-in. And I'll use Centene in St. Louis is one of the largest employers in St. Louis. And over time, that relationship has grown to where about a year ago, there was a little bit of pushback from leadership in the HR realm. And so they were able to put on every tech job that's put out there for more junior levels is like a bachelor's in computer science or LaunchCode is what they now include. So you're seeing these companies that have such strong buy-in that individuals can get these skill sets without necessarily a 4-year degree. And so I think that's been a bigger shift. We're still trying to get there in Kansas City. It's been a little bit slower than some of the other markets, but we're still pushing.
So I hadn't thought about this, but those that have left and gone on and gotten jobs, they probably still keep in touch with you, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is their feedback about making that transition? What kind of interesting stories can you tell about someone who's gone through? I know I can think of one of the apprentices that we had that now works with us at VML-Y&R, and I mean he told me, he said, I really thought that I was going to just sit at a computer and code all day long. And I'm like, yeah, no, there's other things. There's meetings, and there's all these little things that you don't really think about that are part of work life. So what kind of stories have you heard, like feedback from those who have made that transition?
John, you want to go?
Yeah, I can go. And this is, I use this story most often. And Eric, you met him the other night when you came in with Sarah and Gabby, but Joe, our instructor for the JavaScript portion of our Unit 1 curriculum. So Joe, I believe, took the second iteration of LC 101 here in Kansas City. So he went on to be placed as an apprentice with UPS while he was working on the docks at UPS, went to be a developer there, and continue on, became a TA for LaunchCode, and his dream was to become an instructor for LaunchCode. So he's just wanted to give back ever since he got placed, finished the program, and he was able to do just that this time around. He was the instructor for JavaScript. So Joe's probably my favorite, one of my favorite stories here in Kansas City for sure. I would say that's, and also just I like to see the my fellow students that were in the same cohort as me. I'm thinking of a few, and a lot of them are at VML-Y&R. So like Laura, I know Sam is there, I believe. I'm really good friends with John C. and Bonnie. They're both really awesome, and they've been TAs, and it's just nice keeping in contact with them. Those are my favorite stories. Fellow students in my cohort, and then Joe, of course. Cool. Also Jude. Jude was my TA. He he didn't go through the class, but he's a TA for me.
And I think what's really cool is the cycle is now. I mean, you're seeing a lot of the placements that we had as apprentices a couple years back are slowly starting to move into more senior roles, and having more visibility within the companies. I mean, Laura, being able to co-host a large event like this in, such a short time, it's really cool that we now have individuals we placed, 2 years ago now coming back to us and saying, I need apprentices. And so it's just a cycle, and our alumni groups are very, very close. We have a strong alumni organization that comes back and they give back to LaunchCode as much as possible. And so it's cool to see that, just the cycle of individuals.
Well, we're down to 5 minutes left. If anybody has any last minute questions, you better get them in now, because you'll never be able to talk to Adam or John ever again. No,
Gone forever.
or just shoot an email. I'm sure you guys would be happy to talk to them. So
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has any, you're out there, Iowa, Chicago, if you're interested in learning more or have, interest in, how can we bring a mentorship, apprenticeship program to the company you're working at, or you have individuals that who may benefit from going, friends, family that going through a LaunchCode program, feel free to reach out to John or I. We'd love to dive into it a little bit deeper, however we can, to see if we can grow some relationships.
Very cool. All right, I don't see any more questions. So I think we can wrap it up. Hit the coffee bar.
Thanks everybody for coming out today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you, Eric, Laura, for this great event.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Todd as well.
You all are great.
All
Jude,
right.
it's good to see you, Jude.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, everyone.
Okay.